Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb, and I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm your host. And weekly, I present to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome to episode 109. And our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. We would like to thank Esther Energy, who are our certificate partners. My guest today works for a company who is on a mission to eliminate wasted energy from buildings at the plug socket level. So without any further ado, I give you Adam Wright. Good afternoon, Adam. How are you today?
I'm really good, Paul. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very good. It's good to see you. Last time we see was face to face, was on an exhibition right next to each other as well, wasn't we?
It was. We were buddies, weren't we? We're neighbours at in the London Excel. It was good.
We was neighbours. We kept saying, "I want to have a chat with you." Yeah, I want to have a chat with you. We never did. Well, we did, but to arrange this, but we never really got there properly. So
we've
really
got there now.
We have. It's going to be great to catch up. So, Adam, where are you based?
So I am based in sunny Bournemouth.
Right.
But the company I work for, Measurable Energy, they're based out of Reading.
Right.
But, we're in the new era of hybrid, aren't we? So I get the luxury of being down here on the coastline.
Brilliant. And is it sunny in Bournemouth today? Because it's not really sunny.
It surprisingly is, actually. Yeah.
Right. All right. So you can say it's sunny Bournemouth today.
I can say, yeah. I would normally be saying, overcast and rainy Bournemouth, but no, it is actually sunny today.
Right. And for me, Bournemouth is holiday area for us.
Yeah.
Weekends and down in Port Dorset, and that's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, no, it is. It's we do get a little overrun, I think, maybe in the summer months, but rightly so. There's white sand beaches and
exactly
and whatnot.
So we have met, as we said, we've met through LinkedIn as well, and we've also met face to face, and we've talked about your products and software, etc. And we know other people within our industry that cross over with both of us, Sam Moody being one of them. So for the benefit of our audience today, could you give us some background to yourself and some of your origin story of why you've come into this industry?
Yeah, sure. So I had a kind of an interesting, I suppose, start to my career. I studied environmental science and then ended up specializing in marine science and started life out working on survey vessels out in the North Sea, out of Gravesend, out around dredging activity, around offshore installations, and basically deploying monitoring systems that would monitor the sea temperature, turbidity, looking for the environmental parameters that might be damaging the environment, and then report those back to be able to control them. And I carried on doing that, and ended up working my way through sort of like a lot more like operationsy type roles, which then led into sort of sales roles. And that you after you deploy it, you end up inevitably selling it to people because you know so much about it.
Yeah.
And then sales kind of morphed a little bit to product management, and I started doing more sort of voice of the customer type things, and in that I started to transition out of sort of maybe just marine science and sort of survey kind of work into more kind of long-term monitoring solutions. So devices that would go on to pipelines, on water networks, in buildings, RTUs, data loggers, anything that was capturing data at a point and then sending it to somewhere to be analyzed in more detail. And I started going into that world and kind of developing IoT products, basically these products that could go into buildings, capturing various different data points. And it crossed over into energy. There was some stuff that was linked in with BMS systems. There was some stuff that had nothing to do with it. We had some that were monitoring sluice gates on salmon migration paths and all sorts of wacky stuff. But one thing I really realized was that I really enjoyed the IoT stuff, and it's only really in the last couple of years that we've seen real growth in that area. It started off with a real bad rep and lots of things over security and all that, but it's come a long way. And then within that, I've also always had that kind of that environmental focus. So for me, I was always looking for something where I could combine those two things, and that's basically what I was able to find at Measurable Energy. And I joined reasonably early doors, when just at the time when the company was really starting to scale. So clearing a seed investment, and then I was hired immediately after that to basically do exactly that kind of thing that I've been doing before with those devices, is to shape the product into an offering, line that up with how that could actually be commercially viable in a market. Who does it get sold to? How does it get sold? What do we say in the marketing? How do we position it? How is it different to other things that are out there? All of these bits, and put this together to then sort of have a kind of a plan for us to scale and grow. And I absolutely love it. It's the most enjoyable job I think I've had so far. Being able to to marry up energy, sustainability, and IoT together is just a dream for me, basically.
Yeah. I'll just touch on you've triggered my mind, and I'm really interested. So
Yeah.
I used to live on Canvey Island, and Gravesend was across. You would have been going on your boat or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I say, boat, ship, or whatever it is going past. So where was you deploying the sensors, first of all? Whereabouts were they being deployed?
So on buoys, all up the Thames, but there was stuff
on the existing buoys that were there.
There were existing buoys already there, and they were basically you'd have a buoy, and then underneath on the seabed was a frame, and on that frame was the monitoring systems, and the cable ran up to the buoy, and there was a little modem in the top of the buoy.
Wow.
But as with anything, it's quite a rough environment out there. Things would go wrong quite often, so we would go out and change them and do stuff. But we had a station on Canvey Island. There was a mudflat station not far from Canvey Island.
Chapman's.
Yeah, that's it.
I think it is.
We had a little ATV that we'd get out and drive across the mudflats to pick up the station. You could only do it at certain times.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want
the sandbank. The sandbank there is beautiful. It's nice. Just suddenly appears, isn't it?
Yeah. There were even times when if we couldn't get there because we didn't have the ATV or something, we'd have to literally sail the boat up, sit it on the flats, let the tide come out, do your work, and then wait for the tide to come back in to pick you up, and then come back. And that's a long wait.
Yeah. And then further upstream, let's see if you're going out. You've got Mulberry Harbour. Was there anything on Mulberry Harbour? The wreckage there? I
don't believe so.
Right.
Further upstream, I think it was more buoys. So all of this was just. All of that there was entirely for the port, London Gateway Port, and it was the whole idea of it was that if too much sediment and dredge got into the water column, we were to alert them, and they were to stop dredging because they had limits on how much turbidity, and it basically at these certain limits, it was when it would start to affect. The wildlife and things that were in there.
Yeah, because a massive dredging program along the Thames, and I think they're dredging it even further because they bring the biggest ship in the world along through that channel there. So, really, where I was going with this was temperatures. I was interested to see, was you measuring temperature of the Thames?
Yeah.
And can you tell us what sort of indication was the temperature rising, or is that over a period of time?
I probably wasn't on that project long enough to see that rise, but the company was certainly measuring that. So if there was, and I would presume that there would be, that they would have been seeing that, and it was part of what the port was responsible for, was any of these adverse effects or things, and that's why it wasn't just the buoys, it was the land stations as well, because we were looking at we were measuring how much sediment was building up on those banks over, and was that different to the amount of sediment that was building up before they were dredging. So there were lots of different things there, but I probably wasn't actually on the project really long enough to maybe see some of those changes.
It's amazing how much work. That sounds like a lot of working for just that stretch of river. I know how long that river is. I know how many buoys there are. and the amount of work, and you talked about Chapman Sands and how much work that would have been on a regular basis.
Yeah.
People don't realize how much work is going in behind the scenes to get this data, do they?
No, at all. I mean, that's day and night shift, probably 3 crews in the day of 2 people, so 6 people in the day, maybe 2 people at night, and that would be on month off. So that would all be repeatable. So you probably, and then with like sort of, the support for that project, you probably have a good 20 people working on just maintaining that.
And just the area. How far out did you go?
So that was pretty much from Gravesend to maybe the furthest one was maybe a mile offshore. So it's not huge, not long.
No.
Yeah.
No. Because you've got all the wind turbines out there as well, haven't you, in that direction?
Yeah, and that would probably have had a completely separate team that were working on that. Yeah.
So really, that isn't all that investment and all that time for that stretch of water. Well, that's just only part of it, isn't it? You didn't even go the other way. That's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing to think that is going on behind the scenes. Probably globally. Yeah, is it going on globally, that sort of work?
I'd like to say that it is everywhere, but realistically, it's most likely going to be in places where it's mandated and it's law to do that. But yeah, certainly around any offshore installation, there is environmental monitoring that goes with it. Dredging activity, the same. The level of how complex it is and how detailed it is probably differs depending on the country, but certainly within Europe, within North America. Absolutely, there's a high level of that kind of focus on those projects.
And do you think, Adam, this is where your environmental beliefs started, or did it start before then?
I think probably even earlier than that. I was very, very lucky. I'm one of those expat brats that got to grow up in a nice warm country, and I grew up out in the Middle East, and diving was a quite popular thing for people to do. Mm-hmm. And when you've got a coral reef that's just literally on your doorstep, and there's got whale sharks swimming around, and turtles and dolphins and stuff like that, you kind of, it's quite easy to take it for granted. But I kind of fell in love with that when I was a teenager. It's just being able to go diving, get under the water, and you'd see something different every time. And I think that's probably for me where it kind of started. Mm-hmm. That realization that there were things that could affect that. Like we were already seeing that there were building projects and dredging activities that were going to affect that, and that kind of, almost sense of like, it's unfair. Why should this be? Yeah. Why are people allowed to do that and destroy this thing that I find so beautiful? So I think that probably started it. And then I maybe didn't quite know exactly where I wanted to go with it, and that's why I did maybe a more broader sort of degree in environmental science before specializing. But even when you specialize in something, I have a master's in marine sciences, but I'm not working in marine science now. I'm working in energy, but it's tied to the same. Yeah, it's
contributing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's tied to the same beliefs and the same drivers that get you there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And then now, tell us more about sort of your role and the technologies that you're dealing with on a daily basis.
Yeah, sure. So I am the commercial director at Measurable Energy, and what I look after under is how we manage everything between marketing, sales, customer success, and sort of the product management of it. With the view that, and my view very much is that these are all completely connected. Now what we do is at Measurable Energy, we basically have a system where we can identify what devices are plugged into plug sockets, how much energy is being used, and where the energy is being used, and then a way to eliminate the wasted energy, the things that are left on overnight, the things that are left on at the weekend, or when we're hybrid working. And it's one of those challenges where, because we're doing this over plug sockets, this sort of everyone is your customer potentially. Anyone that has a plug socket is your customer. So so where do we go with it? And part of my remit was that where do we go with it? Where is it? Where can we? Where do we go first? How do we scale this? How do we grow? How do we get this impact out as big as we possibly can? And one of those areas, or the place that we've really chosen to focus is within commercial buildings. And we get a lot of people that ask us, why don't you do this in people's homes? Why don't you do that? but the truth of it is that in commercial buildings, we just have so much less ownership over the energy that we're using. It might not be that we are not just, we might live a very sustainable way at home, but it's because we're not paying those bills, or we're not responsible for it, that there's and we're busy doing working. There's an element of people just do leave stuff by accident. It's not necessarily always malicious, or but it does happen where. So we have this quite large amount that we can go after to get rid of. Where in people's homes, we don't just stop in our homes at 6 p.m. and then come back to and wake up at 6 a.m. There's more there's more activity in there. We pay the bills, so we're generally a bit more switched on about what we do with them and stuff like that. So
you're more accountable, aren't you, for your own bills?
Exactly. Yeah. So we target into commercial buildings, and one of the kind of really obvious ones is office spaces. It's gone through this massive change over the last couple of years. We all worked in offices, then a pandemic hits, and now we all, sometimes work in an office.
Yeah.
So and it's not, and we're not just talking about people's desks here. We're talking about everything else that's around it. All the ancillary stuff, the printers, the meeting rooms, the hot water taps, the water coolers, anything else that's around it. People, there are lots of scenarios where people are quite accountable for their own desk and where they are, but they're probably not going to get up and go around the meeting rooms and turn every single TV or AV equipment off.
Or the breakout areas.
Exactly, yeah, or somewhere that's a bit more communal. Yeah. So we go after. So my job is really be about how do we put this all together in a way that makes sense to people, is scalable, and ultimately that drives these energy reductions and also the emission reductions behind that energy.
Yeah. So where do you start with that? Where's your starting point? So when I look at sort of systems like yours, I sort of visualize that, well, let's start in our office areas first and then start breaking it into so I presume, I always say it's like a Lego set. You buy one little bag of it to start with, and then you start to expand once you start benefiting from it. Is that your starting point? Where's the best place? Okay, we've got an organization. We're talking to someone like the Shard, for instance. Many floors, and then floors are all broken off. Where was someone like that start? And then when was someone like a normal business start?
Yeah, sure. So it's one of these ones where we're never going to go into a building like the Shard and go, guys, here's 10,000 plug sockets. Off you go. Let's change them all. It doesn't matter how many case studies that we've got or how much we've done there. Of course we want to show people as much of what we've already done in other places, but there is also an element of all these buildings are different. We've seen scenarios where the same type of monitors are in different buildings, wasting different amount of energy, but they're the same. So what the way that we do it is we would go into somewhere like the Shard. We'd work with the team at looking at maybe a smaller scale first installation. Now, in that first installation, what we'd be looking for is it doesn't have to be thousands of sockets, but it does have to have enough so that we get enough data for it to be able to inform them where the highest energy waste is, but also where there's not that much, and we don't want to. That's not what we want to. We want to start scaling there. So we'll do a mixture of different devices. We'll get over some of the few spurs. We'll get into some meeting rooms. We'll do some desks. We'll look at how we can sort of impact some behavioral change on the desks with it. We'll do a kitchenette, a printer room, and any other high energy devices they might have in there. TVs are a good one. You get these TVs all over the place that are advertising to people who aren't there, which and then from that, what we do is we then essentially prove it over that section, and we're completely open with it. We will inevitably find some devices within that bit that we've looked at that just don't make sense for us to be going on and eliminating, because there just isn't enough there. But every single installation, there's always a surprise, something we didn't expect that much to be there. And it's making sure we capture those at that first scale, because then it makes sense from both sides. We can go to the Shard, say for example, and show them if it gets scaled over all of these devices or these areas in this building, this is what you will be saving. And it's not based on an estimate or previous installations that we've done. This is based on what we've actually measured from your building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have to change the fitting of the socket?
There's a couple of options. So we have a double wall socket that is a swap for the existing wall socket. And we also have a sort of like a desk mountable extension lead. So these are 4 of our sockets on an extension lead format that can just be plugged into anything.
So it's easy. So they won't need an electrician to come along and put it in. They can just plug this extension lead.
Yeah. So that side of it is really nice and easy. But there's benefits to both. So if we're going over a lot of static equipment that's never going to move, it's permanently there. It makes sense to maybe change the wall socket so that someone can remove an extension lead if they wanted to. Now we always give through the product, we always give the occupants the ultimate control. So an occupant will be able to override anything that our system does. If they want power and they need power at that time, they press the button physically right there in front of them, and they'll get power to it.
Is it just sockets?
Yes.
Not the light switches. We don't do light switches level.
No, just sockets. But longer term in terms of vision and where we can get
and
to
roadmap.
Yeah, and roadmap is plug sockets is where it gets us into this. We use this machine learning to identify what these devices are. We use the machine learning to identify where these wasted energy gaps are and where we can start turning stuff off. But there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't use that same machine learning to identify lighting data, heating data, ventilation, air conditioning, other bits in there. We already integrate into BMS systems. We can bring that data in there. The future of this is we can be the brain that sits there in the BMS, identifying where there's that wasted energy. And then the longer it runs.
And it also brings external knowledge in, doesn't it, regarding what's happening in a big wide world regarding carbon?
Yeah. So one of the kind of the unique parts of it, and it's openly available data. You and me can look at this data today, right now, on our laptops and see this. But what we do with it, with the carbon intensity data, is we put it in front of people at the time when they're actually using energy, so that they can make an informed decision. Now, what it does is, and what this is a green amber red light system. Really simple, the most universally understood color system for green is good, red is bad, type system.
Yeah.
And what it is it's linked up to the carbon intensity API from the national grid, and it tells us in green when the mix of energy that's being generated on the grid is more predominantly renewable. But it can also mean that there's less actual demand for energy. So think middle of the night on a summer's day, we've got solar's been generating all day long. We've got a bit of wind generating. We're all asleep. No one's heating's on because it's nice and warm. Yeah. The sockets are all green, because
the sockets change color, do they?
Yep, and they change gradually through the day. We've seen days where we can go between green and red, and it links up to demand as well as it does to the generation.
I'm smiling at him, so I can see why a particular company then misinterpreted what you were saying, where it was going from red to green, and they thought that was green energy actually at the point.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The penny's dropped in my mind now.
Yeah, we have had the sort of the insinuation that maybe it's renewable energy, that we're showing when the people are using renewable energy, which, as you and I know, is not possible. Like the grid is a bucket of full of all sorts of different energy in there, and unless you are generating your own renewable energy, you're not going to be able to
on a private wire or something.
Yeah. But by seeing that carbon intensity, and we turn these lights off if they're in front of they're on sockets that don't face people, because we don't need to have it there. But when they're in front of people, it gives people this option that they've never had before, or it puts this in their mind that they've maybe not had before, which is, it's green right now. I do need to charge my phone. Should I charge it now while the carbon intensity is lower? Or it's red right now, but should I wait until later?
For a couple of minutes or
yeah. And on average, just by that simple decision on like phones and charging laptops, we see around about 5% reduction in carbon emissions by people doing that.
By people's behavior.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying? That's amazing to see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it plays into the bigger picture here as well, because, you know, we're talking about carbon intensity, but we're kind of touching on it. It's also linked to demand. And we're seeing more and more with these energy providers that are doing these demand side flexibility response events. The other thing that these sockets can do is they can facilitate demand side response.
Right.
So we can identify loads that can be turned off or turned on at those demand side response, you know, periods for the occupants or the business that owns it to take payments for doing that. Yeah. And if you've got the occupants already reducing their load through carbon intensity at the time when it's red, well, those red periods are generally always lined up to the demand side
exactly
events. And the same with the green periods. You know, we don't see a huge amount of them now, but you know, we're likely to see periods where we're going to want people to use energy, you know, and on the green periods where we're generating a lot of renewable energy, let's use it, you know. So it kind of we start to sort of, you know, kind of nudge the occupants in a way that lines up with how we can line up demand with, you know, generation a little bit better.
It's funny. I've seen a lot of smart technology, but I've never seen it interface what you're doing. And I like that because it's making people think more about their. And so we talked about commercial, but can you bring this to? Have you brought it into have you got it in your house, for instance?
Yes, I have them in front of me right now. I can tell you that we're sort of amber at the moment, so we're somewhere in the middle between, you know, green and red, especially when it's colder days and people have heating on. We're likely to maybe see it ramp from now. We might see it lower in the day. It's quite sunny right now outside for me, so we may see some solar play into that mix a little bit. But yeah, you kind of see it, and you see it every day. You see there are similar times every day when it goes green and when it goes red. So
do you find yourself monitor that? Do you find yourself looking at that on a regular basis still? You're not getting bored?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously there's part of it that I'm completely ingrained in this, you know. But yeah, I absolutely do. And to be honest, most of, you know, the calls that we have with people, you know, they'll ask when we get to the bit about when we're talking about you know, carbon intensity and behavioral change. I'll be like, oh, and it's this right now, and they'll be like, you know, oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry, you're starting putting these in their houses. It can work in houses. Is it cost effective for people? Because sometimes when you're talking smart technology, you know, you are paying a premium for that. But there's no subscription with that. They're just buying a socket and it goes on the wall and it will actually identify. Or is there a subscription based with the software?
Yeah. So basically, the way that we've approached this is how we don't want to have a piece of hardware here that's really expensive and really prohibitive to actually getting out there. You know, there's ways that you could maybe try and do this with sort of, you know, smart sockets that would be, you know, they would eat a lot of the savings here. We want people to get the savings. You know, we want people to get the commercial savings, and we also want them to get those emission, you know, savings from it as well. So we've done everything we can to keep the socket as, you know, the price as low as possible. And, you know, each socket is £22.50. Okay, so there's not a huge amount of difference between that and a high-end normal socket. And then on that, with each double socket, it's £1.25 per month for the subscription. And what that basically means is that we need to eliminate more than 62.5 pence per side of the socket. Now, we've got, you know, that's why we target this around the kind of the highest weighting devices. You know, we'll see TVs that easily are wasting, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80 quid over the course of the year. You know, hot water.
I know one particular TV was costing £120. And that was mine because I thought it was in standby. It wasn't clear that it was in standby. I was just leaving it on at the back.
Yeah.
And £120 a year.
And that will be, and that's on one side of what'll be one side of the socket. We've still got another we've got another side where we can get another saving on there. So this is how we target it.
Yeah.
But then we've got these other aspects of it that kind of, that, we really lead with sort of like that kind of like, the wasting, eliminating that wasted energy. But then you've also got that kind of behavioral change part. And, we actually have customers that their whole motivation for installing this has been just on being able to report back on the carbon reductions. We've got customers who aren't paying their energy bills. So they're now paying for this on top, purely to just be able to say that they've eliminated 4 tons of CO2 emissions per year type of thing. So there's that side of it. There's the kind of the reporting side. There's that demand side response bit. A lot of the time, we're talking about being able to get additional payments to people on top of their waste energy with the demand side response. And there's also this thing that, because we can identify these devices there, and we have access to, or they have access to every single socket, we can block certain devices being plugged in that businesses don't want to have there. So, for example, many offices have rules around personal heaters under desks. And we'll go in and people say there's no personal heaters in this office, and we'll walk around and there'll be 5 straight up plugged into people's desks on.
Hidden.
Yeah. So when one of those gets plugged in, if we've got it set up to do so, we can identify it.
You can flag it straight away. Yeah.
Just cut power to it straight away. They don't want it on there. They don't have to have it. They can have it flagged, but they can also just act on it straight away automatically. We've got things like bottle fridges in student accommodation. In rooms, there's like it's an insurance thing about having fridges in those individual rooms, and we can identify them and block them. And then the other side of that is without blocking stuff, we can also just identify unusual activity right down to the individual device level. So we've seen things like faulty electric heaters, suddenly unusual patterns within the frequency or the active power, or that you probably wouldn't normally see, and then flagging them. And then we've had 2 weeks later when the occupant has actually gone, oh yeah, it actually broke, it's not working now, and we actually saw the initial part of it starting to malfunction 2 weeks before that. Amazing. So there's these other sides to it, and it's one of those ones where if we had all of this on the front of our website straight up, it completely overwhelm everyone. Where do you
start? You wouldn't be able to see the trees the wood for the trees, would you? Because it's just too much.
And the other thing is, then it all becomes oh god, there's too much here. This must be really expensive. This must be astronomical. This is too good to be true.
I was surprised when you said the price per double socket. I thought that's significantly in line with existing sockets.
Yeah, and this is the whole thing. It's like, the hardware for us is really the enabler to allow us to get the ML out there to more places.
And is it easy to set up?
Yeah, so we've tried to everything that has been designed around how this can be really, really simply scaled. Okay, so the first question is often security. So it's been designed in with enterprise grade security. We've got installations in with like the NHS, military organizations. We've got various different security credentials like Cybersecurity Plus and other things to make sure that we have a system that is designed that can be scaled in the commercial environment. We pre-program them all up before they get to anyone. So we do it within our production sort of process. So we capture, we engage with the IT team that get the Wi-Fi details before they submit them through a secure 1Password vault. It then gets put into the devices individually. We pre-program all up, so they're gonna the second that they're installed, they're going to connect to that business's Wi-Fi. They get plugged in if they're the extension leads. We just need to know where they are, basically, what building they are, and we generally capture a lot of that information when we do like an audit to work out where we're going to put everything. And then when the user gets onboarded to it, we already have all the locations already in that hub for them, and then they are able to, from the second that it goes live, start seeing the data coming in, and the data comes in live. And they're able to start looking at patterns from that point. We let it run for like a baseline period, and the baseline period depends on the use case of the building. The business might say to us, in 2 weeks, that's our normal, kind of calendars, and that's our normal sort of, schedules. But there's others that might say, you know what, we need more like a month to get the, to identify the standard way that we use it. And then after the baseline, we can start running the machine learning and getting it to turn things off. And we do it in a really phased approach with them. So, there's this is new to a lot of people. People are not using machine learning to automatically control their plug sockets. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we use it to then tell us first what should be turned off. And we show the customer in the hub, here are all the places, and here are all the rules that it's suggested that we should set.
Yeah.
And then they are able to vet them and go, there might be a reason why they don't want to do that one, or they might want to do that one, but they don't want to include these certain devices. And then we can just tweak those to do that and remove certain devices they don't want off at certain times. Mm-hmm. And then as they kind of as they run those rule sets and they're happy that they're doing what they want to, we can then let it run automatically and carry on from there.
Right. Sounds amazing. Is there a way that you can buy these off the shelf, or they need to be your engineered side? Like for the house, for instance, you're not going to need as much as that or engineering to be done on it. So can you buy these sockets off the shelf, plug them in, and they should work in line with what you want to do? And
so for like the domestic market now, no is the answer. But we have plans to be launching into the domestic market within the next sort of 18 months or so. Yeah. Now, what we're doing at the moment is we're gathering a lot more data from people's homes. We've got our employees' homes. We've got a couple of national home builders that are putting these into new build properties, and purely on the basis that we're not expect. There's no expectation or guarantee of amount of reduction. These are in there for data gathering. We're going to gather data from a family living in a 3-bed home, from a family living in from various different use cases, and we're going to get that data. And then from that, what we can do is we can adjust how we offer this to domestic homes. But likely it would be something that's more plug-in. So rather than the actual socket itself, something that you plug into your existing plug sockets, something that's more similar to setting up a smart speaker. The requirement for us to have that enterprise grade security on there is for businesses. It's because we can still have a secure system that a user in a home is able to set up.
Sounds amazing. So Adam, it's coming this time. I'm really sort of, the more I learn about your technology, the more I want to learn. So we could probably just check my time, and there's more for us to learn, and you need to come back and keep updating us with your roadmap and things. But it's come to that stage during the interview where I sort of going to laugh. I'm going to put you on the spot. You've been on the spot all
twice
for the last 40 minutes. But is there anything that you can give back to our industry today for our audience to sort of pick up from today's conversation?
Yeah, I think, I tell you what, this is the biggest one that I've learned in so far with measuring this data. Is that it's all great looking at like the spec sheets and the average energy use for certain devices and things like that, and it can be really useful modeling. We've seen so many times when the standby use, the waste energy is far outstripping what is written on that spec sheet for that device. And we've even found devices that don't seem to have a standby mode, even though they say that they've got a standby mode on them.
And you think it's in standby.
Yeah, and you think this is it. Stuff that is literally on off, but says that it only uses 0.1 watts on standby. So I think the biggest thing is this. What I've learned is going into everything with this open mind and trying not to make so many assumptions, because as you will probably know, in energy we get these red herrings come out out of places we just didn't expect.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that, because I alluded to it earlier in the interview so I've got a widescreen TV. It's on my wall, and I've had that for 3 years. I never, ever turn it off. And I brought myself one of these wattage power testers where you plug into there and you plug it into the wall. I was flabbergasted that I worked out it was costing me £120 just in standby. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
what? I never turned it off. There was nowhere to turn it off. When you turned it off, it turned it off. Didn't put it in. And I thought, oh, it's turning it off. But it wasn't. It was putting it in standby, but there's no LED to say I'm in standby. So I thought it wasn't in standby. I was just turning it off. But no, 120 pounds that was costing me.
I'm not surprised, and it's mental. And like another one that always comes up for us so much is that we see so many of these, like, you know, the little hot water tap boilers or the zip taps and things like that have plastered all over them eco or eco mode and all this kind of stuff. They're boiling in the middle of the night 24/7. Like, they're boiling water for people that aren't there. And we've been doing this already, and you can turn them off for like 10 hours. And I'm telling you, when you get back in the morning, there's still hot water in there. For the first people, you know, There's so many things like that. And it's just, what is always really nice is when you maybe have someone that's, you know, they really want to like to believe you in all of this, but there's part of them that's maybe a bit skeptical. And then when you show them this data, the actual data that we're doing, they're like, oh wow, okay, I really didn't realize, you know, because I thought it was this, I thought it was that, and it's that we've never really had this level of granular data down to this individual device level, or even group of devices. You know, we could just group all the TVs together.
I think we are going more and more granular with our monitoring. I'm noticing that in the industry, you know, how far we're measuring, you know, we had the main meter, then we had secondary meters, and now we need to break it down to the socket. It's always been people's dreams to have it at socket levels, and that's where it needs to be, because we don't know what's being used, and you're perceiving it. And my little test that I did, so I buy one of those power units for all my clients to go around. And it's amazing. They come back to me. I'll give it to them on the start of the month, and they come back to me at the end of the month and goes, wow, we can't believe what we're checking, and the amount of consumption. And that's all the noise energy you're using, isn't it? It'll be that background stuff that's on all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all adds up. And then when you think of it, like, you know, we'll do it with a company and then we'll be like, this is just that floor. And we're like, this is what you could save on just this floor. And they're like, oh, wow, we've got 10 floors.
You
know,
that's the thing. You start to multiply it, and then the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you say, and we've got 3 buildings. And then we've got and we've got locations across Europe. How can we get on these? It just it goes from there, and it all comes down to sort of, you know, having, you know, starting point of being able to have that really good sort of first installation that covers enough of the stuff that's there. You know, we know. We never want to force people to have to just change everything, because you know, maybe down the line, you know, maybe energy just goes in one way, in one direction in terms of price, and we get to a point where everything is worth putting on there. But you know, this way really it works really well for the team that you're working with in that business, because they can very clearly just show, you know, to their you know, the management, senior leadership, the benefit that they can get, and it's already measured. Which is the kind of the key bit. Well, Adam, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. It's an amazing story, and I'm glad we really finally caught up properly. We need to follow up more, but it's really good to have you on there on Energy Speaks Back, and feeding back to the industry of what you're doing and what we, you know, all the benefits of that, which I think is very powerful. So thank you very much.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to talk about all this and sort of, you know, go into more detail about loads of the stuff that we probably don't shout about all the time. You need to be getting up on the roof and shouting. So, so Adam, I'd like to say thank you, and you and your family stay safe in these times. Great. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.